I don't know why I'm having issues connecting. I have no idea why I'm having issues connecting today. Um, I'm just gonna wait a little while so I can get a audience. It's showing that I'm live now. I'm not used to really doing live streams. You know what? Matter of fact, while this is going on, hold. I'm gonna see if I can get on Facebook at the same time. Shalom. I see I got at least one person on there. Hallelujah for that. I I was having some technical difficulties, you guys. So bear with me just for a moment, okay? Bear with me just for a moment as I'm gonna get started on this breakdown. Just bear with me for a moment. Yeah. Bear with me just for a moment. Usually I don't have any problem doing this, but today I decided today I'm having all kind of difficulties, but bear with me. Oh, hold on one second. Thought I was gonna be able to use my computer, but I'm not gonna use my computer, so I'm gonna have to go old school here. I should have went to the Knesset. I should have went to the Knesset and did this. Should have went to the Knesset and did this, but you know what I do. Um, bear with me one moment. See if I can get the live chat up. Let me see if I can get the live chat up. Bear with me. Okay, bear with me. Let me see. Give me about 2 minutes. So I can pull this up. Can I pull this up? Okay, that's up. Good. That's up. Okay, now if I can do it like this. Okay, let me separate that. Oh, I'm almost there. Almost there. Almost there. Thank you for your patience. Separate this here. Almost there. Separate this. And if I can, live video. See if that works there. All right. Anyway, concerning the Gentiles. Before I get into this, I'm going to ask that anybody that's able to see this, if they're not watching this live, see it later, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Okay, so we can get a whole better production and going live here. But anyway, I'm going to get right down to it. Gentiles. Growing up, I was always taught that they use the scripture out of context in the book of Romans, saying Jews or Gentiles, which implies that if you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile. I'm going to show you why that's incorrect. Okay. Also, there are a lot of different doctrines in regarding Gentiles. One doctrine about Gentiles that is spread among a certain sect of Hebrew Israelites is regarding regarding how the 10 lost tribes of Israel are who the Gentiles are, specifically in the New Testament. And that is incorrect. Okay. So, first thing we're going to do is that we're going to break down the origin of Gentile. Okay. And we're going to address the whole dynamic of Jews or Gentiles. You're either a Jew or a Gentile. Show you why that is incorrect. Okay. In the King James Version of the Bible, we turn our attention to Genesis, the 10th chapter and the 5th verse. And I'm going to explain to you why we're specifically using the King James Version of the Bible for this particular passage, because other versions of the Bible read different. And as a matter of fact, when you read the passage in other versions of the Bible, they're not going to make sense. But the KJV, it introduces the term Gentiles, and it makes perfect sense when you see how it's used. Bear with me one moment. For some reason, I can't I'm trying to get my chat to work. Hold on one second. I'll tell you what I'll do. Bear with me one moment again. Okay, let's see. Turn my volume down so I won't get no feedback. Turn my volume down. Okay. Okay, so I got my chat open. Okay. All right. So anyway, we was at Genesis, the 10th chapter, and let me see, Genesis, the 10th chapter. I'm going to start this off at the first verse so we can see what we're dealing with here. It says, "Now these are the generations of the sons, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood." Okay. So we got Noah, which is the father of his three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And then second verse says the sons of Japheth. So now we're dealing with one of the sons of Japheth. Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Elishah, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. Okay, we're going to deal with these names in just a second, but let me read the fifth verse. Fifth verse says that by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue and after their families and their nations. Okay, so according to the fifth verse, it says by these, and who are the these? The these would be mentioned in the second verse where it says the sons of Japheth. So according to what we read here, the sons of Japheth are who the Gentiles are. Okay, now let's get a little bit deeper into understanding these Gentiles. Okay, when you look up, and if you want to press pause on this video, if you're looking at it after it's live, find your source. Get on your computer, get on your phone, look up who Gomer is, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. Look up who these people are, because it says that they were divided in their land. So all of these names have lands and everyone after his tongue. So apparently all of these men here had a language after their families and in their nations. Okay, so I'm just gonna get to the short of it and let you know that the Japhet, he is the father of the European people. And all of these names that we read are European nations. Okay. And I'm going to give you a few of them, just like Madai would be like the Medes, and Magog would be like the Russians, and Javan, they would be the Greeks. Okay. And Ashkenaz, Ashkenaz are a Eastern European people. These are the prominent people that are known as Jewish people today. These are the prominent people that occupy Jerusalem today. These are the people that when we're going to read in scriptures, they are trotting down Jerusalem today. They know it. They call themselves the Ashkenazim Jews, okay? But that's who they are. The people that we know as Jewish people, they do not have any Shemitic root. And we didn't read anything about the sons of Shem yet. We only read about the sons of Japhet. So Ashkenaz is a Japhetic European people, as we can clearly see right here in the third chapter. Okay. Now, going back down to that fifth verse, we're going to do a little bit of a breakdown in this verse too, because there's a lot more to it than what we read. But we have to use we have to think on what we're reading here. Sometimes we can read something here, and if we don't really put no thought to it, or if the Ruach don't give us an understanding of it, then are going to miss some very key elements and what's right before our eyes. Let me show you a few of these things, okay? Verse 5 again reads, by these are people, their nations, were the isles of the Gentiles. It groups them together and gives them a name, Gentiles. Notice that the word Gentiles is a proper noun, okay? It's a proper noun, meaning that Gentiles are a specific people. The word Gentiles is never rendered as a improper noun. Therefore, nouns cannot be properly substituted by a improper noun or a pronoun or whatever. It is a specific people. Like if I say, look at that group over there, but if that group has a name, you can't properly substitute the actual specific name of the group just by saying group, because group could mean any group, but you put a name to it. Now you put a proper name. So we see that the word Gentiles are a proper name and they are specific people, okay? Mm. So think about that one as we continue on in this, okay? Um, the word Gentiles, as you see here, does not imply that it is a system of thoughts. It doesn't imply that it is a religion. It doesn't imply that it is a way of thinking. All that is telling you is that it is a collected group of specific people, and in this case, they are the sons of Japhet. So the word Gentile implies that we're talking about a specific people, and the meaning of this word does not change. People in their doctrines have changed the term for Gentiles, saying Gentiles only mean nations. Yeah, that's one definition that you might hear that you may have read somewhere, but it can't simply mean nations. It cannot simply mean nations because nations is not a proper noun. Nations could be any nations, okay? And even in that fake definition, they say that Gentiles are all the people that are not Jews. How many of you have heard of that phrase before? Well, what's wrong with that? Let me tell you what's wrong with that. What's wrong with that is that when you see the word Gentiles rendered here, and when you have read the people that are the sons of Japhet as Gentiles, a Jew does not exist. The word Gentiles exists before you could see a Jew, before you could see an Israelite, before you could see Abraham. So if a Jew is not in existence, then how does the word Gentiles be in existence right there? That cannot be the correct definition of the term Gentiles because there are no Jews to compare them to that formulates that fake definition of if you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile. Okay. Let's see, what's another point? Another point is in reading this verse here, it says again, I'm gonna read it for about the fourth time because every time I'm reading, I'm giving you a understanding consistent with what it really means. Okay, watch this. By these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, and their what? What's the last word in that verse? The last word in that verse is nations. Ooh. So the word Gentile cannot simply mean nations because the word nations is the last word in that verse. And you cannot substitute the word Gentiles for nations. They're in the same verse. One is a proper noun, which means what it means, the sons of Japhet. And the last, and the word nations simply means exactly what it implies nations, a generalization, nations. And you're going to see that word nations if I read, as a matter of fact, let me just skip down. Let me just skip down for a second. Skip down to Genesis, the 10th chapter, and oh, bear with me. Oh, hold on one second. Genesis, the 10th chapter, and the 20th verse. It reads, it reads, these are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. The word Gentile is not there. The word Gentile can't be there because Ham has nothing to do with Gentiles. We read that the sons of Japhet were the Gentiles, okay? And then again, we skip down even more and we look at listing the sons of Shem all the way down to the 31st verse, and it reads, these are the sons of Shem after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. So Shem are not Gentiles. Ham are not Gentiles. Japhet is are who the Gentiles are. Okay. So now that we got that situated, let's look at some of the things that the scripture says concerning who the Gentiles are, okay? I'm going to just read certain things here. I'm going to try to be as short with this as I possibly can. Let's go down to Isaiah, the 11th chapter. Let me look at that for an example. Isaiah, the 11th chapter. Okay. Isaiah 11th chapter, I'm going to read this from the top, first verse. And this is a prophecy that's written in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah 11, verse 1 says, and there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse. Who is Jesse? Jesse is the father of David, okay? And when this was written, Jesse and David, they were long gone at this time. So this is prophetic. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch. And you see that word branch is generally capitalized, meaning we're not talking about any branch. We're talking about a specific branch that came out of Jesse shall grow out of his roots. And the spirit of Yahuwah shall rest upon him. Who's him? That branch. The spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of Yahuwah. So just by the fact that this branch has the fear of Yah, let us know that he's going to have the spirit of knowledge, because the fear of Yah is the beginning of knowledge. You have to have that fear of Yah to attain to that knowledge. See, some people try to learn all they can about the scriptures or whatever, but they don't have that fear. So their understanding is always going to be shortened. It's always going to be part of the word retarded. And look up the word retarded, because I mean it in the actual sense of what the word means. It's not going to be a full sense of what thus says Yah, because you have to have that fear. No, people try to have conversations with you. A person that's walking in the laws and statutes of the Most High, one that's not walking in his laws and statutes of the Most High, they cannot have that same understanding that you have. So no matter how much you try to share things in the scriptures or whatever, their understanding will never ever be equivalent to your understanding, because of the fact that they don't have that fear. And that's a real dynamic, okay? You have to have the fear of the Most High, keeping his law, statutes, and understanding to attain to the wisdom of the Most High. You can't get around it, okay? But verse 3 says, and shall make him a quick understanding in the fear of Yahuwah, and he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears. But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. Look at that verse there. This is Isaiah 11 chapter and verse 4. It says, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the who? For the meek of the earth. That's really interesting that in this place here, he doesn't give you a nationality or a specific nationality. He tells you about the poor that he's going to judge, and he's going to reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. You have meek people of different nationalities, but we know that meekness is one of the key attributes of a servant of the Most High. But that's a whole nother lesson. That I deal with that right now, I'm gonna be here until for another 8 hours, okay? But just understand that this is something that the Father requires in us, okay? And it says in the middle of that verse 4, and he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And who's the wicked? Will we try to put a ethnicity or nationality to the wicked? No, he didn't put a ethnicity or nationality to the wicked. The wicked are just those that are not being obedient to the Most High, okay? Verse 5 says, and righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins, okay? But let me skip down to the specific verse that I'm trying to get down to, okay? Verse 9 says, and they shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of Yahuwah as the waters cover the sea. So that means that the knowledge, the real knowledge of the Most High, is going to be spread throughout the entire earth, not in specific places on the earth, but through the entire earth is where the knowledge of the Most High shall be spread. Watch this. Verse 10 says, and in that day there shall be a root of Jesse. In the first verse, we read about this branch that come out of Jesse, and now he's bringing this branch or this root back up in the 10th verse. And in that day, there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek. So on this day, these Gentiles who we have exhausted the definition of what a Gentile is, according to Genesis 10:5, being the sons of Japhet. And again, you see Gentiles here with a capital G, a proper noun, it's talking about a specific people. And it says, and his rest shall be glorious. Okay. One second. Let's see if I can utilize this little joint here. So it'll free me up a little bit. Okay. That'll work. Oh man, okay. So let's go to another place here. Let's go to another place here. Let's go to Isaiah the 42nd chapter. Isaiah 42nd chapter. Let's see what we can find out here regarding these Gentiles. Because Isaiah 42, it mentions them again. Let's see what the prophecy is concerning the Gentiles. Isaiah 42 and verse 1, and it reads, Behold, my servant whom I uphold, mine elect in whom my soul delighted. I have put my spirit upon him. Him. Could that be referring to the branch of Jesse that we read about earlier? Could it? Because we're still in the same book, in the book of Isaiah. So it very well can be referring to the branch being his servant. He said, I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. Okay. And then skip down to verse 5. Verse 5 says, Thus says Elohim, Yahuwah, he that created the heavens and stretched them out, he that spread forth the earth and that which cometh out of it, he that giveth breath unto the people upon it, and spirit to them that walk therein. I, Yahuwah, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles. A light of the Gentiles, huh? That's interesting. And it says to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison houses. Interesting. All right. So we see here concerning there being a light to the Gentiles at that time appointed. Let's see what else can we read in regarding these Gentiles here. Okay. And this is all talking about in the kingdom age. Okay. Let's jump down to Isaiah the 49th chapter. Isaiah 49th chapter. And let's see what it says here. Isaiah 49. I'm going to start this at verse 5. I'm going directly to the point. You can read these chapters in full on your own time. Trying not to be long-winded. Isaiah 49 and verse 5, and it reads, And now says Yahuwah that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. Though Yashrael be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of Yahuwah, and my Elohim shall be my strength. And he said, It is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Yashrael. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be. Oh, you know what? I skipped something. My bad. Let me go up. because we're about to establish something in here. Let me go up. Isaiah 49, and look at here. It says in verse, let me start this at verse 3. Isaiah 49 and verse 3. It says, and said unto me, thou art my servant, O Yashrael, in whom I will be glorified. His servant in this instance is talking about Yashrael, the nation. Yashrael. When he means Yashrael or Israel, who was he talking about? He's talking about the 12 tribes of Yashrael. He's not talking about one tribe, Yahuda, because if he's talking about Yahuda, he would have said Yahuda. When he says Yashrael, he's talking about the people collective, the nation collectively. So again, in verse 3 says, and said unto me, thou art my servant, O Yashrael, in whom I will be glorified. Okay? And then, so I'm going to skip down to verse 6. And he said, it is a light thing that thou should be my servant, who? Yashrael, to raise up the tribes of Yaakov and to restore the preserve of Yashrael. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. So the elect of Yashrael, those of us who are of the elect, the Father is going to use us to do all these things that he said that's going to happen in the latter times. He says, it is a light thing that thou should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Yaakov and restore the preserved of Yashrael. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. Wow. So when you read this, it sounds like the Gentiles are also going to take part in this salvation, which is what the light is represented. Hold on 1 second. Let me okay. Let me read a little bit of this. Verse 7 said, thus says Yahuwah, the Redeemer of Yashrael, and his Holy One, to him whom man despised, to him whom the nation abhorred, to a servant of rulers. Okay, kings shall see and arise. Princes also shall worship because of Yahuwah that is faithful, and the Holy One of Yashrael, and he shall choose thee. Now, I understand the Holy One of Yashrael to be the one that we see that's written about in what is called the New Testament books, okay? And we see the name given to him in the New Testament as it's written in English as Jesus. But the truth of the matter is that Jesus, that name, refers to a whole nother entity that is one of the gods of this world, and is the God of the Gentiles. He's that idol of wood and stone. When you think of Jesus, that's who you have to understand. That's who he is, okay? He is just another incantation or version of the Greek deity Zeus. But that's a whole nother lesson. But the one that's actually written about in the New Testament, his name is Yahshua. And the name Yahshua means Yah is salvation. Okay? That name Yahshua is not, the name Jesus does not translate from Yahshua. It does not transliterate from Yahshua. One reference book actually said that it's a Hellenized version of Yahshua. Okay, and when you look up Hellenization, it's talking about to make things pagan, to give honor to Zeus. By definition, that is what the term Hellenized mean. Okay, so Jesus is entirely different entity and the one that we read about in the New Testament, whose name is Yahshua, which mean again Yahuwah saves. Okay, but but that's not what our topic is today. We're still talking about the Gentiles, and so far regarding the Gentiles, we see. Matter of fact, let's skip in the same verse. We're going to skip down to the 22nd verse. We're in Isaiah 49 and 22, and it said, "Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, behold, I will lift up my hand to the Gentiles." Uh-oh, what is he going to do with his hand to the Gentiles? He's saying, "Set up my standard to the people, and they shall bring thy sons in their arms, and thy daughters shall be carried upon their shoulders. And kings shall be their nursing fathers, and their queens thy nursing mothers. They shall bow down to thee with their face toward the earth, and lick up the dust of thy feet, and thou shalt know that I am Yahuwah, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me." Now, the truth of the matter is that this is what's going to be part of the Gentiles rejoicing and coming into the light. Okay, this is part of what they will do at that time. This is not in the dynamic that we have been hearing falsely, because the Father is going to judge all the nations, okay? And like we read earlier, the wicked, even among the Gentiles, are going to either be destroyed, or they are going to be the ones, if the Father is so willing to be, in servitude. But there are going to be Gentiles that even before this time come, that will be a part of it's a term that they use in the New Testament, and we may read this term later, called the Commonwealth of Yashrael, okay, that have taken hold of the covenant that the Father made with Yashrael, joining themselves as a people to serve Yah. Some have already done that already, okay? Matter of fact, when we read these prophecies, we're going to read just that, okay? Let's keep going. Let's try Isaiah the 60th chapter. Let's go on Isaiah the 60th chapter, 60. And let's see what we're going to read here. Isaiah 60th. I'm going to start this at the first verse. Isaiah 60 and 1, it says, "Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of Yahuwah is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But Yahuwah shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising." Okay? "Lift up thine eyes round about and see, all they gather themselves together, they come to thee. Thy sons shall come from far, and thy daughters shall be nursed at thy side." Okay, so here, let me see. Let me go down. Let me go down to verse 9 or verse 8. Let's look at verse 8. "Who are these that fly as a cloud and as a dove to their windows? Surely the owls shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of Yahuwah Elohim, and to the Holy One of Yashrael, because he hath glorified thee." It mentions the ships of Tarshish. We read about Tarshish in Genesis 10th chapter earlier. So the Tarshish are Gentiles, and they're specifically Spain. Now, it just so happened that during the slave trade, those were Spanish ships that bought Yisrael over into the Western Hemisphere in slave ships. When you read about Christopher Columbus, his trip over into the New World was financed by who? By Tarshish, by Spaniards. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, I believe that's what their names was. They financed the whole conquering of the quote unquote New World. But we were in the belly of those ships. But here he's talking about prophetically here concerning being brought back to our land. Okay. And I'm going to read that 9th verse again. It says, surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them. Wait a minute. So our sons that come from far on these ships of Tarshish, they are going to have silver and gold with them. That's interesting. So sometime between now and the time of our gathering, there's going to be a form of reparations being paid, just like our ancestors had silver and gold when they came out of Egypt. How many of you knew that? Huh? That's heavy right there. That's heavy right there. Just as we were paid when we came out of Mizraim in Genesis, the 12th chapter, we're going to have silver and gold with us when and we're going to find out if we keep reading that silver and gold is the riches of the Gentiles that we'll be having when we come back to our land. That's very interesting, okay? Bear with me one moment. Okay, let's go somewhere else with this. Hold on one second. Ooh. Let's go on Isaiah 61 and verse 6. Let's go on Isaiah 61 and verse 6. And let's see if we can confirm something that I just said in Isaiah 61 and verse 6. Matter of fact, let me see. Matter of fact, I'm going to pick this up at the 5th verse. Isaiah 61 and verse 5. It says, and strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. So these people of other nationalities or ethnicities are going to do this for us, the descendants of those that were taken captive, the descendants of those that were made to serve in hard bondage. The ones that did these things are going to be the very ones that's going to do this thing here. Okay. Anyway, it says, verse 5 again, a stranger shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. But you shall be named, watch this, priests of Yahuwah. Now, Israel, guess what? We were to be the priests of Yahuwah from the very beginning. And this is where we messed up at. And this is where we're still messing up even presently. When it says this in Isaiah, where we at? Isaiah, this is the 61st chapter. And we're at verse 6. It says, but you shall be named the priests of Yahuwah. The truth of the matter is that we are getting that priesthood back, but we have always been the priests of the Most High. The sad thing is there are a whole sect of Israelites that don't acknowledge the dynamic that we are supposed to be the priests throughout to the whole world. What we want to do is that we want to tell people that you're not going to be able to get into the kingdom, and that has never been the plan of the Most High from the very beginning. When you look at the covenant that the Father made with Abraham, the very first term of the covenant that the Father made with Abraham is that you and your seed shall be a blessing to all nations. That was the very first term of the covenant that the Father made with Abraham. You can read that in Genesis, the 12th chapter, and you actually can read that in subsequent chapters. You can read how that same term and that covenant was passed down through Isaac and was passed down to Jacob and then passed down to us. Why? It's not just simply our ancestors was wicked and now we were made to serve the other nations, because the truth of the matter is that that's what we are. We were made to serve the other nations, and we were supposed to serve the other nations as priests set up high above every nation on this earth as being the priests and ministers, and minister mean to serve of the Most High. But we were supposed to do that set up on high. But because of the wickedness of our ancestors, we're still serving the other nations, but we're serving them being on the bottom, being the tail and not the head. See, we haven't been taught that, but the truth is the truth. We were supposed to be priests. When you go into Exodus, the 19th chapter, it shows where the Father made a covenant with us, with our fathers. And he said, you shall be unto me a priest nation, a nation of priests, meaning that it will be our job to teach and educate the whole world concerning the Most High Yah, his laws and his statutes and ordinance. Okay? Give me a real quick example of that. A real quick example of that. Let me give you an example of that. Abraham had a nephew named Lot. And because of the enmity that their servants had with each other, they decided to separate. And so Lot chose to dwell in Sodom, okay? And Abraham chose to stay opposite of where Sodom was, okay? Genesis 14 tells us about how these kings rose up against Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, 5 nations. And Abraham raised up 300 of his servants to fight. I think it was 318 or something like that, to fight against these 4 dominant kings. And they fought and was victorious, and Lot came back. And then we read about how the king of Sodom tried to reward Abram, but Abram would not take anything from him. And he just said, well, just give me the people. The king wanted the people back so that he would be a nation again. So to make this long story short, when the people went back to Sodom, Lot went back with them. Now with Lot, 2 things there. With Abraham having delivered Sodom, and with Lot being there as a representative of the Most High, those people were now bought with a price. They could not go back to Sodom and be the same people that they were, serving whatever idols that they were serving, now that they were delivered through the Elohim of Abraham. They now had to live according to that salvation that was given to this people. But they didn't. And in fact, they were worse than what it was in the beginning. So in Genesis 18 chapter, when you find the father didn't even want to tell Abram what he was going to do, but he ended up telling him. And when he told him what he was going to do to Sodom, Abraham was like, oh, trying to bargain with the father concerning Sodom, because he like, I risk my life and the life of my men to save this nation. And I know they should be doing good because they got my nephew Lot there to teach them the right way. Guess what? They wasn't listening to Lot. They didn't care nothing about Abram. They didn't care anything about that. So that's the reason why they had to face the judgment that they faced. But the point was is that Lot was living according to the Abrahamic covenant of being a blessing to that nation, but the nation rejected the blessing, and guess what? They got cut off, okay? Show you a second example of that. A second example is when the father put a judgment on Nineveh. Nineveh is the capital of Assyria. Okay, so they're not Israelites, and this is found in the book of Jonah. And the father told Jonah to go there and preach to these people truth, that they are going to be destroyed. So here, Jonah didn't want to go because Jonah had this racist dynamic that I don't want to go to those Ninevites. Ninevites were evil, and they really don't like us. So when you look at the history of our captivity in Assyria, look at the history, you will understand where Jonah got that mindset was. Jonah went the whole opposite direction until the father had to reprove Jonah by putting him in the belly of a fish. And that's the story of Jonah is way deeper than people think, but I don't have time to really get deep into it. But on our channel, I have a breakdown of Jonah, and it is amazing. But to make that long story short, Jonah ended up having to be right there in the place where the father told him to be. And he's standing in the middle of the street. He's saying 40 days and this place is done. 40 days. And the word got out to the king of Assyria that there's this Hebrew out here standing out here in the middle of our streets talking about some 40 days and we're going to be destroyed. And when the king heard that, he stopped everything. He did not even think twice about it. He took off his royal garb, put on sackcloth and ashes, made everybody in that whole region, man, beast, animal, child, whatever, say, look, we're going to put on sackcloth, we're going to fast, and we're going to pray. Because he knew that this Hebrew prophet wasn't no joke. It wasn't no joke. See, and that's the way it is today. That's the way it is today. Every Israelite that I know, when you are out here living your life according to the laws and statutes of the Most High, and people know it, you know what they do? They're just like, how do I put it? They know that you are in truth and that you represent the Most High, but they deny it, and they still live according to all their customs, all of their idols and all of that. But they look at you and they be like, oh man, this dude here, I ain't about to challenge him in the word in the Bible or whatever. But because they know, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, they know, but they don't want to get rid of their traditions. They don't want to get rid of their idols. They don't want to get rid of any of that stuff, even though they know in their heart that what you represent is the truth. And this is what I think of when I think about that king of Assyria. He knew, because see, world history back then knew who Israel was. And I can get real deep into that, but I'm not going to get too deep into that. See, we're under European history and American history. They done put everything that we read historically in the scriptures as being mythology or religion or whatever. But back then, it was not mythology. It was not religion. It was world history back then. And the people understood this. oh man, I could get so deep into this, but I don't want to get away from the topic. But my point is that Jonah again represented that Abrahamic covenant where he was to be a light to the Ninevites, even though he didn't want to be, but that's what the Father bade him be. And it just so happened when that king heard about what was going on out there in the streets of Nineveh, that this Hebrew was out here prophesying and saying we only got 40 days and we're done, he didn't waste no time in decreeing a fast to his whole population. He didn't want nobody to come ask him questions like, are you gonna follow this cat? You gonna follow this foreigner coming over here talking about, we're done, whatever? King didn't take no counsel or nothing. It was like, yeah, we fasted. We're not gonna eat nothing. We're gonna fast. We're not gonna drink anything. We're fasting. And the Father repented of what he was gonna do to Nineveh. And when he repented of it, Jonah was upset because he was ready to see them people toast. And the Father had to rebuke Jonah to get him out of his wicked mindset, which is the same mindset that we see among Israelites, some Israelites today. Okay. The Father said he would that he don't rejoice over the death of the wicked. He don't rejoice over that. That's what the Father said. But that's all we talk about concerning how they're gonna be destroyed and they're gonna be and the missiles gonna come get them and all this crap like that. That's not what the Father has sent us to be as being priests of the Most High. Okay. But let's move right along. Okay. So we were just in Isaiah the 61st chapter, speaking prophetically concerning these Gentiles. And again, Gentiles, by definition, have never changed. Okay. Gentiles, a proper noun, is still, by definition, the sons of Japhet. The sons of Japhet. Let's go into, matter of fact, let me go and revisit what we was just in Isaiah the 61st chapter. And where did I just read here? It says, first, I left off at verse 6. It says, but you shall be named priests of Yahuwah. Men shall call you the ministers of our Elohim, and you shall eat the riches of the Gentiles. See, I said that, right? I said that earlier, that when we come back, we will already have silver and gold with us when we go back to our land. When we step on them ships of Tarshish, we're going to have silver and gold just like our ancestors had when they came out of Mizraim. Okay, it said, you shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall ye boast yourselves. Okay, for your shame you shall have double. For your confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. Therefore in their land they shall possess the double. Everlasting joy shall be unto them. For I, Yahuwah, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offering, and I will direct their work in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them. You know what? Some of you are listening to me, and some of you have been led to believe that you are a part of the new covenant. I hate to tell you, but you're not in a new covenant at all, because the new covenant is yet to come into existence. And this is one place here where it talks about that, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them. That time hasn't come yet. Okay. Every time you read about the new covenant, it is prophetic. We haven't got to the new covenant yet, but that's a different lesson. Okay. Matter of fact, look on our channel. I got the lesson on our channel. We are not under the new covenant. And here's one place here that talks about that when he says, I will make an everlasting covenant with them. Okay. Verse 9 says, and their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them that they are the seed which Yahuwah had blessed. See, the world is not looking at Yasharel like that right now. Matter of fact, we are a byword, a proverb, and that Psalms 44 says, I believe, we are shaking of the head among the people. Okay. Okay. I'm going a little bit longer than I thought I would, but I want to be thorough and understanding concerning these Gentiles. Okay. Okay, so let's move right along here. Moving right along here. Let me look at Isaiah 66 real quick. Isaiah 66. 6. Isaiah 66. And everything that we've read concerning the Gentiles has been very, very consistent, okay? It's talking about, again, the sons of Japhet, okay? Skip down to the 19th verse. I'm going to start at 66 and the 19th verse. Check this out. Here and it reads, and I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them unto the nations to Tarshish. Tarshish we read about in Genesis the 10th chapter. That is Spain. They are Gentiles, Tarshish. Paul that draw the bow to Tubal. Tubal, we're still talking about sons of Japhet. And Javan, that's the Greeks. We're still talking about the sons of Japhet. To the isles of far off that have not heard my fame, neither have seen my glory, and they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles. So it's mentioning Gentiles here, and it's very consistent, let you know these are the Gentiles. Watch this, verse 20. This is the second time we're reading this, but we read it somewhere else. Verse 20 says, and they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto Yahuwah out of all nations upon horses and chariots and litters, upon mules and upon swift beasts, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, says Yahuwah, as the children of Yasharel bring an offering in a clean vessel unto the house of Yahuwah. Ain't that something? That's what the Gentiles are going to do at that time appointed. And again, these are the seed of Japhet, the Europeans that we're talking about. Okay. Let me see. Let's go somewhere else. Hold on 1 second. Oh, let's see. Let's look at the book of Hosea. Hosea, the 8th chapter. Hosea, the 8th chapter. Let's look at this. Hosea, 8th chapter and the 8th verse. I'm going to go right there to that specific verse. It says this. Yashrael is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure. That's what's happening with us right now. He says among the Gentiles. Let's focus on the whole Western Hemisphere, the whole Western half of the earth, okay? When we look at world history, we find that the whole Western half of the earth was conquered and dominated almost totally by three nations, by 3 nations, from the top coming down through Canada, through America or Americas, even in South America and in the islands. They were basically all dominated by 3 people for the most part. And who are these 3 people I'm talking about? I am referring to the Spaniards. The Spaniards were the first Gentile people that came over to this side of the earth through all those explorers, Ponce de Leon, who else? Christopher Columbus. The list goes on and on, but they were Gentile explorers that came and dominated their part. Okay, and you look at America itself, which is a microcosm of the entire Western Hemisphere. Spaniards came over first. When the Spaniards came over, they brought slaves with them when they came over. A lot of people may not know this. And the reason why I'm telling you this, because there's that whole doctrine about the 400 years being 1619 or 2019 or whatever, which is absolutely fake, because that has nothing to do with what was written in Genesis, the 15th chapter, that the Father told Abram about the 400 years. Has nothing to do with it. Because, and when 1619 got here, the Spanish had already been here for over 100, 200 years by that time, which again, there were slaves on those boats. Okay? All 1619 refers to is talking about the English slavery. English slavery. Because the English were the last of the 3 that came over here to America. When they came over here to America and they dominated the whole East Coast for the most part, France had taken over the middle part of America. The middle part of America is represented by the Mississippi River. So you go all the way up top through Canada and come down through, historically we talking about the Lewis and Clark Exposition. Those were French explorers, and they took over Minnesota, Illinois. Matter of fact, Illinois was a French settlement, and there was this Haitian dude that settled near the tip of Lake Michigan. And at the tip of Lake Michigan was a tribe of natives, and they were called the Chicago tribe. And he, Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable, founded the city of Chicago, and he was Haitian. And we know that the French took over Haiti, so that's how he got there. But that's how Chicago was founded, by a brother who was a Haitian. Okay, but my point is that the French controlled all that, and all the way down through Missouri, all the way down into Louisiana, New Orleans. So from the top of the Mississippi River to the bottom, all that was France. And then I think I probably got this wrong. I'm not sure. I want to say Thomas Jefferson, one of the presidents, made what they call the Louisiana Purchase, and they bought all of the land that the French occupied with pennies on the dollar and what's called the Louisiana Purchase. Okay, so we're talking about, again, Spain, French, and English. And guess what? They're all Gentiles. European people, all Gentiles, dominating the whole Western Hemisphere. Okay? They colonized a lot of Africa, okay? And then we're talking about what? We're talking about Europe. We're talking about, throughout most of the world. Gentiles have their hand in it. They rule this world that we live in right now. And again, so that Hosea 8, chapter 8, verse says, Yashrael is swallowed up. We're swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles, specifically Gentiles, as a vessel when is no pleasure. Okay. Mm. Ooh. Let's go into Micah real quick. Micah real quick. And every time you see that word Gentiles, again, it's a proper noun. It ain't talking about just anybody. It's talking about specific people. You know what? Write down Micah 5 and 8. Just write that down in your notes. I'm not even going to read that. It's going to just say the same thing what we just read in Hosea. But I'm going to go somewhere else, though. Let's go to Joel, the 3rd chapter. I want you to check this out. Joel, the 3rd chapter. Check this out. I'm going to start this at verse 1. Joel 3 and 1. Joel 3 and 1 reads, it says, for behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Yahudah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations. He didn't say Gentiles. He's saying all nations, whether they Gentile, Hamitic, Shemitic, whatever, I will gather all nations. Okay? And will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people, for my heritage Yashrael, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. And they have cast lots for my people and given the boy for a harlot and sold the girl for wine that they might drink. Watch this. This is about to get deep. Verse 4 says, yea, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre, Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Let's not fly through that. We read Tyre and Zidon. And I'm going to tell you something. I think I might have misspoke earlier. When we read Tyre now, presently, is occupied by Gentiles. But back historically, they were not Gentiles, Tyre, okay? Tyre were not a Gentile people. They were part of the coast of Palestine, I believe. I want to say they were, you know what? I'm not going to tell you anything false. They were either Hamitic or Shemitic. My mind escapes me which one they were. But what have you to do with me, O Tyre, Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? There's a term given collectively for Tyre, Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine, historically speaking, and they were not Gentiles. They were not Gentiles. This people, this group of people that he's talking about here, in Psalms 83, they're called the Confederacy. Okay? I want to hold your hand here and let's go back to Psalms 83 and read something. Let's go back there. That's going to illuminate this passage that we're reading right here. Psalm 83. Psalm 83. Watch this. In Psalm 83. This is going to be good. Psalm 83 and verse 1. Psalm 83 verse 1 and reads, keep not thy silence, O Elohim, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Elohim, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Okay? He's saying that the enemies of the Most High, these enemy nations, had taken crafty counsel against thy people, Yashrael, and consulted against thy hidden ones. These enemies have come together to do this. Watch, pay attention. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Yashrael may be no more in remembrance. So this group of nations that came together with one consent to cut off Yashrael from being a nation. Okay? People really don't understand how deep that dynamic is. Because first of all, we are no longer a nation. We have been cut off from being a nation. What was the thought process among this group that they would cut off Yashrael from? What did Yashrael do that made them want to come together and do that? Okay, I'm gonna tell you clearly what it is. They did not like the fact that the creator of heaven and earth, Yah, worked through Yashrael. And all of these nations had their own idols, their own deities, their own traditions that they kept. But they knew, just like I mentioned earlier, that though all those that they were doing were fake, because Yahuwah is the Elohim of the whole earth, but he dealt through Yashrael, his priest. And as long as the people existed as a nation, then Yah was there. But when you take out the people, you take out Yah. You think that sounds strange? It's not strange, because guess what? Years back, before Israel started waking up, and I've been in this walk for 35 years now. And when I came in this walk, I wasn't even using Yah. I wasn't calling the Messiah Yahshua. There's a group out of Chicago that was formed together in the early 60s. And that group was known then as the Kingdom of God, KOG, which was led by a brother named Ben Ami. His name was Ben Carter. He was a bus driver in Chicago. He formulated this group. And in 1967, the Kingdom of God, as they were called, because we know them as KOG in Chicago. Oh, KOG, you part of KOG, you know KOG? But it was only later where they changed it to the Kingdom of Yah. But they wasn't the Kingdom of Yah originally, they were the Kingdom of God. And they went and relocated into Liberia in 1967 and lived there for about 3 years or so until they moved into Israel, where they have a community right now, still to this day, in the southern Negev of Israel in a town called Dimona. But my point is that all this was representing the Father opening up Israel and bringing Israel back into this truth. Okay? Going back to this, though, my point is that when Israel was scattered, Yah was not something that people heard any, because people were worshiping Jesus, they're worshiping Allah, they're worshiping all these gods that have become the gods of the world, these idols of wood and stone. Yah was not, the Jewish people, so-called Jewish people, they tell you that, hey, because the name is so holy, according to them, that's what they say, we're going to take Yah out of the Bible and replace it with Lord God. So everywhere you see the capital Lord and Lord God in the scriptures, the name Yahuwah was right there, which they took out. When you take out the people, you're able to take him out. And that's what these nations did. There was a name given to this group. Let's continue reading. Psalm 83, verse Did I read it already? Verse 4 says they have said, "Come, let us cut them off from being a nation that the name of Yashrael may be no more in remembrance. Oh, for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee." So that's what they're known collectively as the Confederacy. Okay? Let's see who makes up this Confederacy. Watch this. Let's see who makes up this Confederacy. Verse 6, the tabernacles of Edom, our twin brother, the one that came out the same womb as we did. We came out the same womb. We spoke the same language. He's the head of this Confederacy, Edom. And I'm about to prove to you that Edom is not the white people as what has been taught foolishly among our people. The head of this Confederacy here is Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gibal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher also is joined with them, and they have help in the children of Lot, Selah. This group are the coast of Palestine. That's where all of these nations dwell among that coast. They were all our neighbors, our distant relatives, Edom, Ishmael. They were Hamitic people and Shemitic people that made up this confederacy. There's not a Gentile listed here. There's not a Japhetic nation listed here because we didn't know the Japhetic people. According to Deuteronomy 28 chapter, the Gentiles were people that neither we nor our fathers have known. We never heard their language. We never heard none of that. But these people we knew. Intimately, we knew these people right here. The first confederacy. And you see Tyre is listed there. He said all the coast of Palestine. So understand that the head of this confederacy is Edom. Edom is the head of this confederacy. Two things I want you to understand. Edom was the head of this confederacy, one. And two is that the confederacy was made up of Shemitic and Hamitic people. There were no Gentile people that were part of this confederacy. There were no Japhetic nations that were a part of this confederacy, okay? Let's go back to Joel, the 3rd chapter, and pick up where we left off. Joel, the 3rd chapter, and let's pick up right where we left off. Hold on. Joel, the 3rd chapter. Yeah, okay. Joel, 3rd chapter. I'm going to pick up right where we left off. It says in verse 4, Joel, 3rd chapter, in verse 4, it says, "Yea, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre, Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine?" That's the confederacy. See, it didn't mention Edom here. It didn't mention Edom here, but Edom is a part. And not only is he the part, but he's the head of this confederacy that we're reading about. What have you to do with me, O Tyre, Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? These are the exact same people that we just read in Psalm 83 that had the plot. What was that plot? To remove Yashrael from being a nation. So the Father is speaking to these same people. What have you to do with me, O Tyre, Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense? And if you recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head? Watch. Because you have taken my silver and my gold and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. Here come the money shot right here. The children also of Yahudah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, Gentiles, Grecians, white people, Europeans. The Confederacy sold us into the Grecians that you might remove them far from their border. Think about this. The Confederacy, all the nations of the Confederacy, Edom, Ishmael, Moab, Tyre, Zidon, Amalek, all of them, they did us evil, but one thing that they were not able to do, they were not able to remove us far from our border. They had to sell us to the Gentiles, to the Greeks, Tarshish, to all of these European people that they might remove us far from the border. Edom could not remove us far from the border. Edom, their descendants are still over there right now, occupying Palestine. Ammon, Moab, they still over there. Ishmael, they're still over there. See, in our ignorance, we see all of these people and we call them all Arabs, but they're not really Arabs. That's our ignorance that call them all Arabs. They are different people. Jordan is where Moab and Ammon was back in the day. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, all of those places over there are the same coast of Palestine. And guess what? To this day, those people there still know who we are. To this day, they know who we are. When they came over here and went into our neighborhoods, Edom was there, Ishmael was there, Moab is there to this day, opening up businesses, causing us to be a prey in our own neighborhoods. Wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. Isn't there somewhere, and I'm being facetious because I know where it's at, but I'm just saying it like, isn't there somewhere in the scriptures where it said the stranger that is within you shall come upon thee very high, and you shall be brought down very low? The strangers are the coast of Palestine. Those were the people that was close to us. They're the Confederacy. They will be brought very high and we will be brought down very low. And even when we was brought over here into the new world, they were still the ones that were making money off of us. But notice the scripture is clear. We had to be sold to the Europeans that we might be removed far from our border. The Europeans are not Edom. Edom could not remove us far from our border. Matter of fact, when you read the book of Obadiah, it tells you what Obadiah did against his brother Jacob. What did he do? He pointed to the Europeans on where to come get us and to come take us. That's specifically what the book of Obadiah says concerning what Edom did to Israel. Sold our stuff to those people that took us captive, okay? These Europeans are not Edom. Edom did what they did. They formulated the whole plan and causing us to be brought over here. But the ships didn't belong to Edom because Edom didn't have ships. The Europeans were the ones. And I'm going to tell you something else too, just to throw something else in the pot. All of Israel, most of Israel, get Deuteronomy 28 and 68 verse wrong. And you shall, I'm paraphrasing, come again by ships into Mizraim. And you shall see no more again, whatever. I said, oh, that ship talking about America, whatever. No, it's not talking about America. When the Europeans took over the whole entire Palestine area, the Mediterranean shipping trade, they shipped by ships So in 70 AD, when we went into captivity in 70 AD, we literally got on ships and was sent right back down to them ports in Cairo, Alexandria, Memphis, and those other places down there in Mizraim again, as the scripture says, again. And from there, we were sold as bondmen and bondwomen to all the nations on the face of the earth. That's why from there, we went further west. From there, some of us went north. From there, some of us went south into other African countries like Tanzania. Yeah, learn about their slave history. That was us there too. Okay, the point is that passage we read in Joel 3rd chapter is way deeper than people think. But in short, the Europeans, they had to sell us to the Europeans that we might be removed far from our border, because the Confederacy of Psalm 83, those nations, they couldn't move us far from our border. And they were headed by Edom. Esau could not remove us far from our border, okay? Anyway, let me read that 6th verse again. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border. Behold, I will raise them out of the places where you have sold them. And where those places are among the Gentiles. The Confederacy were not Gentiles. But when we was moved far from our border, we had to dwell among the Gentiles, as the scripture states clearly. I will raise up out of the place where you have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. He's talking to the original Confederacy. Okay? And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Yahudah, and they shall sell them to the Sabaeans, and those are another Hamitic people, to a people far off, for Yah have spoken it, okay? I needed to read that, for nothing else, to show you a distinction between the Europeans and Edom. Not the same people. But that's another lesson. I got a whole nother lesson on that too. Okay, I just had to touch on that for a minute, okay? Bear with me one moment. Did I get to the part that I wanted to get to? No, that's cool. There is some more stuff there, but I need to shorten this up. I haven't even gotten into the New Testament yet. But Gentiles, by definition, is really, really consistent. Okay? Going to Zechariah, the first chapter. Zechariah, the first chapter. Oh, yeah. Zechariah, first chapter. I'm just going to read one passage here. Zechariah 1 and verse 11. Oh, you know what? No, I'm not going to read that. That's gonna take me a whole 30 minutes more to get into that. I'm not gonna read that. I'm gonna table that. Let's go into the New Testament. Yeah, let's go into the New Testament. Just got a few places to read here, y'all. Show you again, Gentiles, very consistent. Sons of Japhet, Europeans. The definition of the word Gentiles has never changed. Genesis 10th chapter, 5th verse. No, 10th chapter. Let me start off at 1. I'm going to skip. Bear with me one moment. Matthew. Matthew, the 10th chapter. Start this off at 1. Watch this. I'm going to be moving quick. I had a long day. and I need to get some rest. I had to wake up to get online and do this lesson here. But anyway, Matthew the 10th chapter, verse 1. And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. Now the names of the 12 apostles are these, and he gives the names of the 12 apostles. Okay, we're not going to go into those names. Okay, skip down to the fifth verse. Fifth verse. These 12 Yahshua sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles. Go not into the way of the Gentiles. And into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Yashrael. Okay? He said, don't go into the way of the Gentiles or into any of the cities of Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Yashrael. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because you have a doctrine saying that the Gentiles are the lost sheep of the house of Yashrael. They're the 10 tribes or whatever. No. Right here, you see a distinction between the Gentiles and the lost sheep of the house of Yashrael. You see that there. They're not the same people, okay? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Let's go into a few more other places, man, because we were not commanded at this particular time because the Father was setting up Israel as again to be a priest nation. He was trying to get us back collectively together. Not establishing the new covenant, but bringing forth a plan to where we would revitalize our priest nation as we were about to go into captivity, which is the reason why. Let me tell you something real quick. Let me just say this as a note. A lot of people are going to disagree with this, but history is truth. And you can disagree all you want to, but history is true. When we were brought into captivity and we went into Western Africa, and then we got on ships and came over here into the new world, the whole Western hemisphere of this world, we didn't have Torah with us. We didn't have books with us, okay? We didn't have any of those things. Ironically, one thing that we did have with us was we had the name of Yah with us. Because that song, Kumbaya, come here, Yah, oh Yah, come here, Yah, it came through us as we sung that in slavery. We sung that on the slave ships. You know, there's a movie, Amistad, Steven Spielberg. It showed a scene where we were found innocent and we were in whatever camp that they held us in, and they singing Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. Where did Spielberg get that from? These slaves were singing the name of Yah in that movie. And he didn't just make that up. That came from somewhere. See, people know about who we are. They know who we are. The point I'm trying to make, though, is this. Yahshua died in approximately the year 27 CE. And the apostles were given through the Ruach HaKodesh, i.e. Holy Spirit, to be a witness of him throughout all the world of Yahshua, which was also the laws and statutes of Yah, the Most High. Yahshua wasn't just some entity by himself. He came to establish the law and make it honorable, as the prophecy says. Now, through the work that the apostles and disciples did, Gentiles, real Gentiles, Japhetic sons of Japhet, they were converted. They were converted into the truth. And this was so crucial because it was through this conversion. Let me explain something to you historically through this conversion. Let me explain something like this. 70 AD, during Titus and Vespasian, they came and took the last remnant of our people, Yahudah, and put us in slavery, put us on those ships and sent us out in slavery. 70 AD, we were out of our own land, exiled into slavery. I don't know a single Israelite that would disagree with the point that I'm making right here. But what was happening after 70 AD? You had believers that were still running around Yahudah, still running around Rome, still running around all of these places. Because see, Rome was being ruled. Rome are Gentiles. They ruled the entire region. They ruled the entire world for the most part. Okay? There were converts among all of these European people. The Romans, the Colossians, the Corinthians. These were European people. They're not as some Israelites teach. They're not as some Israelites, those were Israelites among the diaspora. Wrong. No, they wasn't. These were European people, and I'm going to prove to you that. In just a second, I'm going to prove to you that. But I'm telling you this now so that you can understand that in a process of time, 300 AD, before 300 AD, Romans were killing their own people because we were gone. 70 AD, we were out of there. But the believers that still were there were Gentile converts like Spartacus, Ben-Hur, Androcles, all of these people that you have heard that were fighting in the gladiator fights, that were fed to the lions in the Colosseums. These were they people, and they put their own people on crosses and killed them. In one historical book, it said the crosses will never bear. Well, they killed up to 500 people daily. Why? Because of their belief. Because they rejected the European idols that they were born into, and they were keeping the faith of the Hebrews. These were European people. So by the time you got to the 4th century AD, Constantine came into power. And when he came into power, he was a pagan. But what he did was he was tired of killing up his own people. So he developed this new religion that blended paganism with our culture that was being practiced among the Gentiles. And this is what Christianity is to this day. From Constantine. The point that I'm making is this. It was through Constantine and the Catholic Church that when we came over here into the Western Hemisphere, we were able to access Bibles, King James Version and any otherwise. Because the Father promised us that he will be a sanctuary to us in the midst of the places where we have been scattered. If it was not for these Gentiles being converted and printing Bibles that we have access to this day, we would not have access to this truth. These European people printed up these Bibles, and guess what? They have no understanding of what's written in this. They were not printed for their well-being. They were printed so that when we got here, we would come to the knowledge of this. If you knew the whole story of Nat Turner and how he was taught the language, and when he got a hold of one of these Bibles and not the slave Bible that they initially gave him to teach out of, that changed his whole understanding around, because he understood who we were. And it wasn't just Nat Turner, it was quite a few of them. Harriet Tubman, people do not understand her depth of understanding in this. Same thing with John Brown. John Brown was a Gentile. He's a European, and I'm telling you, he is the best American that ever existed. This dude was a European, and he knew who we were as a people. He knew we were Israel, and he spent his whole life defending us out of slavery. And if it wasn't for what John Brown did, and I ain't saying this out of my opinion, I'm telling you, this is written in history, there would not have even been a civil war. There's a movie, you can watch it right here on YouTube, called Santa Fe Trails. Watch that movie. The movie ends, and it's talking about what John Brown, the movie is about John Brown, starring Ronald Reagan, the dude Errol Flynn, and a whole bunch of them stars back then. And they were all had a mission to put down the rebel John Brown. The movie ends, and it tells them that his actions is what single-handedly kicked off the Civil War. The point is, again, that the Father used them for us to come back into our heritage and understand the Father's laws and statutes. You can't get around it. That might be a hard pill to swallow for some, but my thing is that when I teach what I teach, I don't have no personal agenda, no personal thoughts. When it comes down to the Most High, I deal with straight facts, straight truth, whatever. And that's part of what our problem is. We go by cats' agendas that formulate doctrines and out of emotions and this and that or the other. When it comes down to Father, he don't have no place for philosophies. He don't have no place for any of that. He's all about the raw and uncut truth, okay? But anyway, we was in Matthew 10th chapter. Let me speed this up a little bit. Man, so much I can go here. So much. Let's look at this real quick. Matthew 20 and 25, real quick, 30 seconds. Matthew 20 and 25, it reads this. But Yeshua called them unto him and said, you know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. When he said Gentiles here, he's talking about the Japhetic people, the rulers. When he's talking about Gentiles, they're not talking about Israelites that was of the 10 tribes or whatever. Okay? How about this? Let's go into Mark, the 10th chapter, 33rd verse. Let's see what it says here. Mark 10, 33. It says, saying, behold, I'm going to give you time to get there. Mark 10 and 33. Saying, behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man shall deliver it unto the chief priests and unto the scribes, and they shall condemn him to death, and shall deliver him to the Gentiles. They're going to deliver him to the Gentiles. They're going to deliver him to the 10 tribes. Gentiles is very consistent. It's talking about the Romans, which come out of Japhet. Okay, let's see. Let's go down some more. I ain't got to the raw and uncut parts yet, believe it or not. Luke 21, 24. I know y'all know this one. Luke 21 and 24. Luke 21 and 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. We're in the times of Japhet right now. And the Japhet is trying down Jerusalem right now. And who's the Japhetic people that is prominent and ruling over the land right now? We read about him in Genesis, the 10th chapter, Ashkenaz, the Ashkenazim Jews. They're trying down right now. And foolish Israel is trying to go over to our land, and we've been exiled out of our land until the time appointed. You're either led away into captivity into all nations now, or you're over there trying down Jerusalem with the Gentiles. Scripture don't support that, but that's another lesson. That's another lesson. Okay. Let's see. Where else can we go? I'm going to try to go to maybe 2 more places real fast to prove again concerning the Gentiles, sons of Japhet. Okay. I tell you what. Let me just go here. Let's go on the what's that, Romans? Oh, hold up. Let me contain myself. Acts the 13th chapter. I got to read this. Acts the 13th chapter. Got to read it. I'm approaching a 2-hour mark. I didn't mean to go over 2 hours, but let's read this for a second. Acts the 13th chapter. Let me start this off at the 4th verse. Watch this. Acts 13 and verse 4. So they being sent forth by the Ruach HaKodesh, departed unto Seleucia, and from this they sailed to Cyprus. Cyprus, who's that in Cyprus? Could it be Gentiles, Europeans? Watch this. And when they were at Salamis, they preached the word of Elohim in the synagogues of the Yahudi. And they had also Yohanan, John, to their minister, okay? And when they had gone through the isle unto Paphos, that sounds gentilic, don't it? But watch this. They found a certain source. Let me skip down. Hold on. Let me skip down. I'm gonna get to a point. Okay, skip down to the 13th verse. Watch this. Now, when Paul and his company loosed from Paphos, they came to Perga and Pamphylia, and John, departing from them, returned to Jerusalem. But when they departed from Perga, they came to Antioch and Pisidia and went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and sat down. They're in Antioch. They're not in Israel. They're in a Gentile country, in a Gentile city. Watch this. And after the reading of the law and the prophets, the rulers of the synagogue sent unto them, saying, Ye men and brethren, if you have any word of exhortation for the people, say on. Then Paul stood up and beckoned them with his hand, said, Men of Yashrael, and ye that fear Elohim, give audience. Men of Yashrael, and ye that fear Elohim, give audience. Now he goes on to give them a history lesson regarding Yashrael. Okay? He's giving them a history lesson. I'm going to get to the end of that history lesson. He bring down, okay. Let's get down to the end of that. Verse 41. Behold, ye despisers, and wonder and perish, for I work a work in your days, a work which you shall in no wise believe, though a man declared unto you. And when the Yahudi were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Shabbat. Ooh, Gentiles, they were there. Okay, some people want to believe that these were the 10 tribes or whatever. No. That's not what it was, but watch this. Now, when the congregation was broken up, many of the Yahudi and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to continue in the grace of Elohim. And the next Shabbat day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of Elohim. Almost the whole city. This is a Gentile city. A Gentile city made up of Japhetic people. It says almost the whole city came together to hear the word of Elohim. But when the Yahudim saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said, it was necessary, check this out, that the word of Elohim should first have been spoken to you, Israel, but seeing you put it from you and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. Let me stop there. When Paul made this statement, it sounded like this was a decision that he made. Like, since y'all rejected it, lo, we going to turn to the Gentiles. Sound like it was something that he made up. But watch what happens here, though. He says this in 47, for so have Yahuwah commanded us, saying, oh, this wasn't something he made up. He said, for so have Yahuwah commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles. We read that in Isaiah earlier, that he had set who? Yashrael. To be what? A light to the Gentiles. These Gentiles are a people that neither we nor our fathers have known. He's not talking about Ethiopia and Egypt and all the nations that we knew from birth. When he's talking about Gentiles, he's talking about these people that neither we nor our fathers have known. Okay? That thou shouldst be for salvation unto the ends of the earth. Be a light to the Gentiles, that you, Israel, should be for salvation to the ends of the earth. That sounds like Gentiles being saved right here, according to what we read right here. Oh, wait a minute. Is that, look, 48, next verse. And when the Gentiles heard this, they were glad and glorified the word of Yah, and as were ordained to what? Eternal life, believe. Wow. So these Israelites took on the banner of being a priest nation, and they did just what the Abrahamic covenant was stated, that we should be a blessing to all nations on the earth. And they took up that banner, and that's what happened right there. Okay. Let me go to one more place, y'all. Two more places. I got to go to two more places. I got to solidify. And it's already solidified. Despite what some people might think, Gentiles are Japhet. Okay? But check this out. Let's go on to, let me see, Romans. I saw them trying to teach this Romans, man. They had it all backwards. But we're gonna deal with it right here. Romans 11 chapter. After this, I only got one more place to go to. Dang, I wanted to beat the two-hour mark. Romans 11 chapter. Check this out. Well, I'm gonna pick this up. I'm gonna pick this up at the 7th verse. Romans 11 and 7. Check this out. What then? Yashrael have not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Only the elect can hear this message right here. The rest is still going to be blinded. According as it's written, Elohim have given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear until this day. Until this day. And David said, let their table be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. Let their eyes be darkened that they may not see and bow down their back always. Check this out. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Huh? Elohim forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles. Well, to provoke them to jealousy. We're not being jealous about the 10 tribes. Our jealousy is from the ones who he's speaking to right here, the Romans, Europeans. That's where our jealousy comes from. How are we going to be jealous about the Gentiles? So look at what these Gentiles got that's going to make us jealous. Watch this. Verse 12. Now, if the fall of them be the richest of the world, wow, through our fall, the world became rich. Is that fact? Huh? All of these years of slave labor. Just imagine you got one person that's your slave, and they go out and use whatever skill they learn to work, and they bring all that money back to you, and you give them just a little bit just to live on, give them a little space out there on your land to have a little shed or whatever, and they eat out of the fruits of the land growing and stuff, whatever, you know. But when their work, the product of their work is going to you, okay? That one slave can keep you from doing any type of work. And you're making all of that money from that one slave. How much money you think you can make from 2 slaves, 3 slaves, 10 slaves, 20 slaves? The wealth of this nation and all the other nations on this earth that had slave labor, they were made rich by our, pardon the expression, blood, sweat, and tears. So when you read this verse, you understand fully what it's saying. Now, if the fall of them, if our fall be the richest of the world, and the diminishing of them, the richest of the Gentiles, what do you think the 10 tribes was doing? Were the 10 tribes being slaves as well? Or were they all of a sudden became rich? Huh? Because they went into captivity before we went into captivity. I say before we. The 10 tribes went into captivity before Yahudah went into captivity. By the time Yahudah went into captivity, you have all 12, because Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, is not about a tribe. It's about the nation of Israel together, collectively, 12 tribes. Just so you don't have no fake understanding or whatever, the 10 tribes did not go into captivity and become rich. Okay? Get that out your mind. They didn't go into captivity and became rich. And now the Yahudah is jealous of the riches of the 10 tribes. We're talking about Romans, Colossians, Ephesians, Galatians, all them descended from the Japhetic Europeans in Genesis, the 10th chapter. Let me start that again. Now, the fall of them be the riches of the world, and diminishing them the riches of the Gentiles. How much more their fullness? For I speak to you Gentiles. Paul is not speaking to Israelites. He's speaking to Gentiles. Inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify my office. If by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh. Wait a minute. My flesh? Wait a minute. You, Gentile, are not my flesh. I'm talking to you about my people, Israel, Yashrael. I'm talking to you about them, about the people of my flesh. Y'all ain't my flesh. He say, if by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh. In the previous chapter, it says, my kinsmen according to my flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth and he says all the things that we pertain to, the glory, the adoption, the services, and the covenants. I didn't read that, but he's telling the Romans about the Israelites who are according to my kinsmen, according to my flesh. Here he's saying that if I, by any means, I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, Israelites, and might save some of them, Israelites. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches be broken off, and you, Gentile, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root and fatness of the olive tree, boast not against the branches. But if you boast, Gentile, you bear not the root, but the root bear thee. Because Gentile, you're not the root. Israel is the root. All 12 tribes are the root. Thou will say then, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off. And you standest by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear. For if Elohim spare not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not you. Okay, let me stop there. My phone is about to go out. I got one more place I want to read. I think it's in the book of Ephesians, I think it's in the book of Ephesians. Let me see if I can fit this in real quick. In Ephesians. Last place I want to go to in Ephesians. Where's this at? Ephesians. Ephesians 2:11. Ephesians 2:11. Real quick. Go there real quick. I'm closing it out right here. Ephesians 2:11. He told the Ephesians, wherefore remember that you being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called uncircumcision. Wait a minute, Gentiles in the flesh? Again, Gentiles is not a religion. It's not a way of thought. Gentiles are a people. They are a group of people that come out of Japhet that we know today as European people. You can't be a Catholic in the flesh. You can't be a Baptist in the flesh because those are not ethnicities. Those are religions. You can't be Islamic in the flesh. Here he says, in a time past, Gentiles in the flesh, meaning that these are European people. When he talked about Israel, he said they were my kinsmen according to the flesh. Israelites according to the flesh, because Israel is not a religion. It is a people, just like Gentiles are a people. So anyway, it took me a little bit over 2 hours to deal with this. Hopefully, if you are hearing my voice right now, that means you went through this whole thing. And I pray the Father's Baruch on you, his blessings. And I thank you for your time. Please share the video, subscribe to the channel, and we go live through the Spirit of Yah Facebook channel every Shabbat, okay, at approximately 1 p.m. Eastern time, okay? Pray that you guys have a Baruch evening and see you guys at the time appointed. Shalom.